This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air with Katharine Giovanni, and we're going to talk to her about her new book. And I'm going to bring that up, The Ultimate Path to Forgiveness, Unlocking Your Power. And I want to welcome you to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for asking me to be on your show.
Well, we love to talk to people from around the world. We've been doing it since 2016. And a couple of questions we always ask before we get to the heart of your story is what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Our world is broken, and I do what I do because I feel that if part of my story or one of my books helps just one person, then it's all worth it to me. It's why I get up in the morning.
Yeah, I love to talk to people who are creative. Like that's why I talk to a lot of creative folks between filmmakers, writers, authors, poets, painters. And I've included in that people who are therapists and people who have like entrepreneurs that work in the healing space. Um,
Right.
but yeah, I just think it's important to allow a forum like a podcast where these kind of views can be discussed openly and in a kind of long form. Because I'm a long form podcaster, not a 15-minute, 5-minute type of guy. Because I think that's one of the issues in our world is people don't ever get into the depth. They get like the 15-second TikTok reel, sample
Oh,
or something. And
people have the attention span of a tick. No, I totally get it. That's why my last 4 books have been like under 100 pages because
yeah,
nobody has the attention span anymore.
yeah, you can't do 200,000 words anymore. You got to do 70,000, 90,000, even less. So when we get to the topic that we want to discuss today, like how did you get into this space before we go into your book? Like what made you go into this area?
Well, the fact that I call myself a forgiveness coach implies that the universe has given me too many things to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
So, it probably started in the 8th grade, and I come from a pretty nasty background. My parents were both alcoholics. They were very pickled, and I was terribly bullied in school. And as a result of these things, in the 8th grade, I tried to commit suicide because I thought, I'm out. But a friend pulled me out. And I spent the next 10, 15 years just kind of floating through life. I turned into one of those kids, the kind of kids I'm talking about. And it didn't really change until my mother, bless her heart, to use a Southern expression, fell down a flight of stairs, broke her hip, and ended up in the hospital. And even my mother couldn't get a gin and tonic in the hospital. So she dried out. And we sent her to rehab. And we spent the next 3 years closer than close. We practically finished each other's sentences. We forgave each other. We lived together. It was just the most wonderful 3 years. And then she died of breast cancer, which I
Oh,
actually eventually got in 2012. And I knew right then, if I didn't change my life, I was probably going to die too. So the only New Year's resolution I ever kept, I quit drinking, and I've been sober now for 35 years or something like that. And when you first quit drinking, you are told to make amends. Well, overlooking the fact I'm old as dirt, I remember back in those days, we didn't have computers. I mean, at least personal computers. So if
mm-hmm.
I could text these people and make amends, brilliant. But I couldn't. They hadn't been invented yet. And I was terribly shy. In fact, I'm an extroverted introvert now because I taught myself how to do it. But back then, I had 2 choices. I could call them up and risk getting yelled at, or see them in person and get yelled at, which was worse. I didn't want to talk to these people. So I quietly did some forgiveness work in the privacy of my own apartment. And I accidentally stumbled onto the first part of the system that I've developed. And it took me years to figure out the rest of the system, and a bunch of breast cancer and all these things happened. But that's probably what started it all.
Started it all. So were you always an author, or did
I
that?
have I have been, well, yeah, if in college, if the exam didn't have an essay question, I was tanked because the essay question, I could always pull that off because I've
Yeah,
always been a good writer.
Blue Book. Yeah.
But I think I've written 12, and my last book is the first of 3. So I think we're on number 13 at this point. I'm crazy. I write about everything.
Yeah, well, I love talking to writers because I talk to I started my show talking to songwriters, which are like writers who have a very short form. That we
Yeah.
go 4 minutes, 15 minutes, but we don't go longer than that typically. And but we try to tell that story. The best songwriters like a Dylan, Springsteen,
Oh yeah.
Joni Mitchell, they actually try to tell a story, not just to have a hook. Though
Yeah.
in writing you do have to have somewhat of a hook to get people to stay in the book.
Right.
So, so
You do.
how did you find a way to actually hook in an audience with the topic you're working on? Did you think about that, or you said, "Well, I'm just going to do it the way I think it should be done, and people will come to it"?
Every book this might stretch your brain a little bit, but that's okay. I promise it won't be painless. Every book I've ever written has really been guided. I'm really, really intuitive. And every book I've written, I just sit down and I clear my mind and the words just kind of flow. I know that sounds a little
No,
odd,
it
but
sounds like the muse. I mean, I'm into the
that's how it
Victorian
works.
stuff, like the Victorian, like it's songwriters and musicians. We tend to
Yeah.
feel that way. We tend to think it's coming from the universe, it's coming from the muse, and we can channel it. And
Yep.
this
That's what
whole
I do.
like stream of consciousness, flow state. Like I'm into Sun Ra, fusion jazz, modal jazz, which is in that kind of space where
Sure.
you have your 10,000 hours that got you to be figure out your instrument, figure out your voice, but then from there you can just take the internal and external and find a way to synthesize it and just you're good at it. That's what you can do. That's what an artist is able to. That's our wheelhouse.
Well, when I'm writing, a lot of people think when they write a book, they have to start with the title and that which I come up with last. And then they have to think of chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. Well, if you're writing fiction, well, yeah, you probably have to do that in a storyboard. I write nonfiction. So I wrote one of my books I wrote in a chemo chair on my cell phone because I was bored. So what I what I mean by that is when the spirit moves me, literally I will write something and it'll just come out on the page and I will continue to do that for months and then eventually I'll look at everything I've written and then I'll organize it
Yeah,
into chapters and then I'll put it out as a book. So
yeah.
that's usually my process. So what I'm writing may or may not be the first chapter. It might be the last.
Well, it's a non-sequential, which I think
Yeah.
again a lot of songwriters or musicians we can get into that space because like we'll just hit record, just create this whole like archive of stuff. And
Yeah.
Frank Zappa was known for that. He would go and look at live performances, studio stuff he did that day, and be in his living room and kind of mix and match and basically kind of tapestry, you just
Exactly
put
right.
it together. And a lot of artists do that. People might
Yep.
they think we might go like we might go from the middle of the song or the end of the song. It's like it's wherever it is, and it's
Yep.
not always sequential. Filmmakers, I always been talking to them lately, and they film scenes totally out of sequence based on wherever they got their set permit, and a lot of this stuff is just like it's not in the order that you would think it would be. So it's like I think sometimes that makes the work more interesting because then you have different perspectives because you're not thinking sequentially at the time
Right.
you're doing it.
Sequentially kind of screws me up, to be honest with you. I literally will just flow into whatever I'm supposed to write, and I do it a lot. But this last book is the first of 3. And what happened was I sent it to my co-author, who's co-authoring the next book with me, and she read it, and she's quite PhD, this smart, and she said, "Well, you've written 3 books." I said, "Excuse me?" She said, "You can't put out a book like this. It's too long. You've actually written 3." Okay, I guess I wrote 3. So this is the first of 3 books.
So she figured out how to segment it out. But that's
Yeah.
like producers
And
and recording engineers do the same thing, and editors.
yeah, so
They
they're all
good.
about 100 pages, give or take. Really
So it's like
short.
a 300-page effort, and then you figured out,
Yeah,
oh, this goes
pretty
here,
much.
this goes there. Yeah,
Yeah.
like a multiple album, like an album that has like sequel, or
Yeah.
movies that have sequels. It's like, oh, you can't do that all at once. So what? Go back to the beginning, and we were talking about your book.
Mhm.
The ultimate path to forgiveness with the idea. What is your definition of forgiveness?
Good question. Forgiveness is a kind of a tricky thing because everybody watching this broadcast right now, everybody, 10 out of 10 of you are actually thinking of the person who hurt you the most. You're unforgivable. So on a 10 scale, with 10 being horrible and 1 being the easiest person, you're thinking of your number 10 person. That's who you're thinking of. And the thing about forgiveness, which is fair, the thing about forgiveness is everybody tells you to forgive. Your teacher, your pastor, your parents. Nobody teaches you how.
Mm-hmm.
How? Give me a step-by-step system. How do I forgive? And what if I don't want to? And it's that unforgivable person, that one person that wrecked your world. I don't want to forgive them. Now what do? Nobody tells us how. I teach the how. That's really, and a few things about forgiveness, just a few little PSAs. There's some things out in the world that are actually not really quite correct. Just because I forgive you doesn't mean I want a relationship with you. Probably don't, right? I've got boundaries in place, man. Just because I forgive you, and this is a big one, doesn't mean all of a sudden I'm telling you you're correct.
Mm-hmm.
No, it doesn't mean that I'm coming over to the dark side, as it were. It doesn't mean that I'm finally giving in and giving you a pass. You're still wrong. You're still a dumpster fire, and you still probably have to make amends of some sort. Forgiveness is personal. So the definition for me is very simple. I want you out of my head. That's my definition. I want you out of my head. I want to stop thinking about you. I want to stop dreaming about you. I want to stop obsessing about you. I want to live my life again. That's the definition. I just want you out of my head.
So you got to get out of the bad loop and move
That's it.
to the
That's it.
present. Because a lot of times, like, I'm a very present kind of moment, mindset. I try to just clear my head, and when I get into work, I just kind of pull whatever's happening. And I know there's a lot of
Right.
stuff. It's like 95% of it is subconscious, and so whatever's going to happen is kind of coming from there, and you start to listen. Right? I think people have to learn how to listen to their inner self and to
Right.
the outer world. And a lot of times, people preempt both. They don't really listen to that inner voice, and they don't listen to the outer world either. They just have this like a lens they put over it, and they only hear certain things.
And you could keep your brain in a loop when and family messes you up, don't they? I mean, they mess you up. And, it seems crazy that something that happened to you when you were a kid by your parents or whoever, you're still affecting you today, 20, 30, 40, 50 years later. And it does. It's like your brain has these closets in the back of your mind, and they're all padlocked, but there's these unseen movies that are just kind of turning on occasionally. And you turn them off if you knew they were there, but you don't know they're there. They're just kind of there. So the system is designed to help you unlock those closets and rid your brain of all these things. If you want to be more intuitive, everybody on the planet's intuitive. That's another book I wrote, because of course I did. Everybody has that little bird in your shoulder. The thing about listening to your gut feeling, that intuition, trying to figure out which direction you should go in, anger will block it.
Mm-hmm.
It acts as a shield. And here's a visual for anybody listening. I'm about to just hold a coffee cup to the side of my body. This purple coffee cup represents anger and bitterness and regret and grudges and resentment. But when I first get angry, look at my body language. I can hold it off to the side. Hey, I can manage my anger. This is so easy. But if you don't take anything out of the cup, humans irritate other humans. So you're going to continue to put more anger into the cup, aren't you? So eventually it's going to start to get heavy. Now look at my body language. Now I'm using 2 hands to hold up the cup. Okay, it's starting to penetrate my thoughts. It's starting to mess my life up, but I can still manage it. I can still see opportunities. I can still see things around me. Well, if I still continue stubbornly to hold on to the anger, now I can't see you at all. My life has stopped. I'm missing opportunities. Why? Because I'm focused on my anger. I'm missing dream relationships. Why? Because I'm focused on my anger. I don't see them coming. So my system is designed to start with the easy ones and work your way up to the dumpster fire unforgivable ones, so you can get that cup back off to the side. Now look, I can see opportunities again. My world has started to open up, and I haven't even gotten to my unforgivables yet. That's what it's designed to do.
I think that's really important, because I think a lot of people, we seem to be living in the age of resentment, being the focal point of everything, and then people are just saying, "Well, I'm going to get rid of your history because it annoys me, right? Because it makes me upset. So
Right.
I don't want to deal with any responsibility at all. I just want to take that situation instead of processing, like as a musician, like I'll process a painful moment and cathartically turn it into a piece of music. But that means I have
Yep.
to actually go into that moment and kind of feel it and use it. And then I move beyond it because I put it into the work and then I go to the next thing.
Right.
Other people, they take that when they say to hide it because they're ashamed of it or they're scared of it and they want to feel safe. So to be safe is like push it away or blame it on somebody else.
Yep. They push it to the back closet of their mind. They put a padlock on it and good to go. But it's still there. You haven't gotten rid of it. And the thing about unforgivable, I'm the only one that'll ever say this to you, probably. You don't have to forgive the unforgivable. Shocker. No, but you don't. Why? Because there's many people, places, and things, and I did say places and things. Stay with me. I will explain that you can forgive before you even get to that person. We
Hmm.
do those people last because they're a bear. If this is a marathon, not a sprint, and those unforgivables, and you might be your unforgivable person. You might be your own number 10. You might have stuff in your background that you need to forgive yourself for. But there's a lot of other stuff that you can forgive before you even get there. So you start with the easy ones and you work your way up to the really, really hard ones, and you do baby steps.
Yeah, it's kind of like I always mention this idea of the looking glass self is a Victorian concept of like
Right.
having that mirror and looking at that other you, which is you, and
Right.
examining, okay, what are your triggers? Like, why are you sad? Why are you angry? And then figuring out, well, instead of like locking it away, using it to have a lesson learned, right? To process it, you have to kind of deal with it dead on. And a lot of times I think that people don't want to deal with it dead on because they feel it's like too painful to address. And so how do you get people to kind of, yeah, I guess you say you take the bite size,
Let's talk about
situation?
that. First thing I want you guys to do is I want you to be alone in a room. And I want you to this is gonna be hard, but there's a magic button on your smartphone, and it's called the off switch. I want you to turn your phones off. And if you are visibly twitching, it's just the thought of turning your phone off, mute it. Don't make it vibrate because it's going to dance on the desk and you're going to be distracted. You're going to look at it. So just mute it for a while. And I also want you to be alone. So little humans, big humans, I want them all doing something else. The dog and the cat can be in there, but other than that, I want you alone. And then I want you to find a piece of paper and a pen. Yes, maybe it's because I'm old fashioned, but there's a reason why I don't want you to do it on your phone. Years ago, there was a study done at Harvard University with one particular class, and half the class was told to say their goals out loud to the room. The other half of the class was told to write them down with pen and paper. They followed these kids through the years, and the kids who wrote their goals down on paper were twice as successful as the kids who did not. So
Hmm.
magic happens when it goes from your brain down your arm and you're physically writing it with a pen. So I want you to write a list of all the people you think you need to forgive. Okay. And I know the unforgivable people, that's going to be your first two, three, four people. It's everybody's. That's fine. Don't judge that. Keep going. Write down everybody you can think of from the time you were a little kidlet all the way to present day. And if you write a name down that you don't recognize, don't judge that name. Some part of your brain got mad at this person. We'll call them Martha. Some people call Martha. I didn't know a Martha. Well, apparently you did way back. Obviously, that person is going to be one of the easy ones because you don't even remember it, right? And I want you to come to make as many people as you want on the list. Then I want you to rate these people from 1 to 10. 10 being horrible, 1 being easy. Now, you could have 20 number sevens. I really don't care. You could skip a number. Also, don't care. But what I really care about is you start with the easy ones. The person who took your parking space yesterday at the grocery store and you had your damn blinker on. Forgive that person. They were in a horrible rush. The person who cut you off on I-95 South last week, you can forgive that person. The person who tripped you in the hall in high school, come on now, it's been 20 years. You can forgive these people. Easy, easy, easy people that you could forgive. And I want you to sit down, think of your first one, right? And I want you to imagine that the person is standing in front of you. Now, if it's somebody from high school or grammar school, I don't want you to see the adult in front of you. I want you to see the kid, the original kid who did whatever it was to you. And then if you need closure, let them have it. Say whatever you want to say. You don't have to contact people when you're forgiving them. You do this in the privacy of your own home. Nobody has to know. So that being said, you can forgive dead people because where they are or are not doesn't matter a lick, does it? Because if they're alive and well in your head, they can be forgiven. So if you didn't get closure before your dad died, now's your chance. So you take this number one person, and you won't probably have anything to say to them because it's super easy. You're not really even mad at them. It was on your list. And you put your hand in your heart and wait for the special sauce to the whole method. It's a very simple mantra. And you put your hand in your heart merely for you, because the words are just for us humans. It's really the energy behind the words. And you say, I completely forgive Martha. I forgive the energy around Martha. Hello. I completely forgive myself. I forgive the energy around myself. Hello again. I completely forgive the energy around the entire situation. And so it is. Amen. Go with God. End it any way you like. And then imagine that they leave the room. Now check in with your body. You still angry? Is that number 1 is 0? Great. Cross it off the list. Is that number 3 person you were doing? You're still a little bit angry. You're checking in. I'm still a little angry. Put a 2 by their name instead of a 3. Wait 24 hours. Do it again. And this next one happened to a friend of mine. And I'll explain about the energy in a second. She was forgiving a number 4 person. She checked in with her body. We were in a private session. I actually watched her do this. And it shot up to a 10. What happened? It's supposed to go the other way. Why did it go from a 4 to a 10? Well, you know that closet I've been talking about in the back of your mind with the movies that's playing? Forgiveness is like an onion, and there's many, many layers to it, and your brain is protecting you. It's like an overprotective best friend, so it protected you. And what you just did is you said the magic password, open sesame, and your brain is like, ooh, Catherine's ready. I'm going to open that closet and flood her brain with memories. And that's what happened. She remembered things and she immediately got angry. So we replaced it. We put a 10 by the name, and she waited 24 hours. And I'll teach you how to forgive the unforgivable in a minute. And she kept taking shots at it. But that's the secret sauce to the whole thing. The reason you keep getting triggered. People come up to me all the time and say, I did forgive them, Catherine. I did the work. Yes, you did. But you're still getting triggered. You see them at a party. You get mad immediately. You see their face on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok. You get angry again. You get triggered. Why? You didn't forgive the energy. Einstein proved that energy is neither created nor destroyed. So it just transforms from one thing to another. And when you get angry, you assume that the energy leaves your body and dissipates. If you even think about it at all, nobody does. It doesn't. It hangs around your energy field. And everything on our planet has an energy field, including this little silver microphone. And forgiving the energy clears it.
I think, yeah, it's a lot of, well, energy is a big thing, and frequency, in my world, I'm a synthesis, so I deal with a lot of frequencies as a musician to try to see what happens when I use certain frequencies. I see behavior instantly if I'm playing live.
Oh, so you get this completely.
And so as a musician, once you realize that certain frequencies, sine waves, ramp waves, pulse waves, different patterns, inverting patterns, converting patterns, like, you can see the immediate effect of what you put out into the space. And so then you realize your voice has the same thing, right? Like, your piano does it and your guitar does, but also your voice does. So like when you speak, you can look through history, go back to the 30s, you see some of those, dictators when they were talking, like the cadence of the voice and the way people follow, there's a pattern that you can trigger behavior.
And if you feel better virtually immediately, and if you listen to a piece of music and it's your favorite song, and when you're upset, you immediately go for that frequency because it's making you feel better. The forgiveness energy is the same thing as music. It's going to immediately feel you better, or worse in the case of my client. And it's going to change. It's going to shift you. And as you forgive the 1s, the 2s, the 3s, the 4s, and work your way up the list, you're going to start to feel better, and people are going to start to notice. They're going to look at you and say, what are you doing differently? You just look so good today. Did you lose weight? Is it a new outfit? Did you get a haircut? Why do you look so good? And you could either tell them or not. It's up to you. You did in the privacy of your own home. You don't have to tell anybody what you did. You don't.
Right. But it's like the law of attraction and the idea of vibrations. Like if you're vibrating in a very dissonant pattern, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of prickly, right? You're probably not going to get a lot of people around you, so people who like dissonance. So the idea, like if you're playing a grunge thing or a punk thing, everybody's gonna
Yeah.
be in a mosh pit, very aggravated. If you're playing something like very ethereal or
Yeah.
redemption, like it actually lifts people. Everybody pulls the candles out, they're swaying back and forth. You can see the different behavior immediately from what you're radiating out. So if you put yourself at a frequency that's more harmonious, like it's harmony rather than dissonance or noise or discordance, you'll get what you give.
But that's how you're going to change. As you forgive people, your frequency is going to change. Like energy attracts like energy. So you're going to be attracting new people in your life, better people, forward thinking people, people that want to see you win as opposed to poke holes in it. But on the other side of the coin, to play devil's advocate, you're going to also have the opposite. You're going to have what I like lovingly call jackrabbits. I had a bunch, still never seen them. And they just left my life and ghosted me. Never heard from them again. Friends
Mhm.
of mine, really tight, and they just disappeared into the ether. And then you have the saboteurs. These are probably family or people you live with who love the old you. They don't want you to change. They're
Mhm.
perfectly comfortable with the way you used to be, the way you were as a kid. I don't want you to change. I like that that hurt, broken person. So now Jim Rohn, who's a very famous motivational speaker, said you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So who do you spend the most time with? Here's a really funny story. Like, it's really funny. I went out to lunch years and years ago when I was just learning about frequency and vibration and all these things. We went out to lunch, and I had already started my forgiveness journey, and I'd already started to forgive people in my past. And so this waitress came up to the table, and my business background. I retired in 2020, but I used to train concierge and customer service. So she politely went around the table and took everybody's off order till she got to me. When she got to me, the color drained from her face, and she went to the other side of the table, and she kind of barked her, "What do you want?" She kind of barked at me. So
Mm.
my concierge train immediately kicked in, and I sat up and I politely gave her my order. She ran back to the kitchen, ran. And I thought,
Well,
okay, it's a little odd. Maybe
that's weird.
she's maybe, and it wasn't even that busy. Even I looked around the dining room, there weren't that many people, and I thought, okay, a little odd. Well, maybe she had to go to the John. Who knows? I kind of ignored it. She came back with everybody's food, and again, very politely put everybody's plate in front of their body until she got to me. And she did the same thing again. She walked to the other side of the table, and then she threw my plate like a frisbee across the table, and it landed within the vicinity of where I was sitting, and all the food was kind of dancing, and some of it ended up on the table. And then she ran at a breakneck speed back to the kitchen. I fully expected her to come back and douse me with holy water or something. I didn't know what it was. And a friend of mine leaned over and just whispered, "She's scared of your energy." And I thought, oh, and what really had happened? And this is why bullies bully. This is why people get divorced. This is why you move from a job. The energy shifts. And it's not the energy of the other person, it's usually the energy in you. And you shift away. So the energy was so different than hers. It was kind of fighting each other like oil to water. And she literally couldn't be near me. Now, the opposite has happened. I've gone into the grocery store and I've been on, let's say, aisle 4, and it's empty. And by the time I leave, the aisle is 4 and everybody's reaching for the same thing I am. It used to annoy me, but now I know what's going on. So it doesn't annoy me anymore. But when you go to the grocery store, pay attention and play with this, because this too will happen to you. When you run into somebody who is not the same as you, they're not vibrating, they don't feel the same, they'll probably take a step back, or they'll probably hate you on sight. You didn't even open your mouth yet. We've all had this
Like the
happen to us.
bad vibes. You kind
Yeah,
of
they got, yeah, exactly right.
you get this idea, you can feel it. Musicians, we kind of intuitive like that. Like when you have a group of people that you can actually work with.
Yeah.
It's
And
kind
you
of
know when you can't.
it's like nonverbal. And if I'm with a group of musicians and I don't have to actually tell them what key I'm in, I gotta give
Yeah.
them the chord changes. They just know it. And then if I get with a group of guys and they're asking, what key are we in? wait a minute, you're a musician, you didn't do your 10,000 hours, you can't hear it? So
No,
then
because you intuitively know you can't work with these people, and they probably didn't even open their mouth yet, and you
it,
knew right away, I know I can't
you
work with
can't
these
do it
people
because they're
because
not,
you could feel it.
yeah, they're not vibing. They're
Yeah.
like off. They're not, it's not fitting in the group. And you want to, like, you spend time, it's like, well, I want to make it work, but sometimes things don't work because, like,
No, not
it's
everything
not,
does.
you're not really aligned. And you can feel this, you get into a workplace. And no matter what you do, you don't please the management. No matter what to do, you're the odd person out. Then you're like, well, okay, I'm trying to force my like square peg in a round hole. I just have like learned it. Like I'm going to go toward the organization where I can shine. And I
Yeah.
figured out, like in my day job, I'm a system analyst. And there's certain organizations where, you know, people would just red mark everything you're doing. You go to another organization until suddenly you're the star. So if you're
Yeah.
in this one group, you can't shoot straight. The other group, they actually see it. So you're the same person. It's
Your
like you have to
energy is what
realize,
changed.
yeah, you have to realize where you belong because sometimes you can't force it. You know, well, it's not all the time. Most of, 100% of the time you can't force it because, and it's hard because people don't want to have to get up and change the environment.
No, they don't.
And,
No, and it's like that old story when one door closes, another one opens. Okay, but what you don't know is there's a long dark hallway between those goddamn doors. Excuse my language.
yeah,
And
yeah,
sometimes you have to navigate the dark hallway. And if a door doesn't open, sometimes you can do everything right, and it still doesn't work. Well, maybe it wasn't your door.
yeah.
That
So
might just be it. Maybe it just wasn't your door to open. So you kind of have to just keep going. And it's the same thing with forgiveness. You just have to keep doing it, and it's going to make you feel what better. Here's another saying that everybody loves to throw around. Anger is toxic. Okay, I'll bite. How? I love the how and the why. I mean, I agree that anger is toxic, but how? Teach me how. Here's the how. There was a study done called the Japanese water study, and you can Google it. It's right online by a guy named Hasumoto. I can't remember his name. Anyways, in the interest of time, I'll just say it fast. He studied 2 containers of water. One container of water, all he did was talk to it. That's it. And he spoke loving words. I love you. You're beautiful. The most beautiful words you could say to anything. He said to this water, little clear glass of water. The other container of water, he just hate. The most hateful, horrible things you can say to anybody, he said to this water. He then froze the water and put it under a microscope. The water he spoke love to had these beautiful crystal snowflake formations. They were absolutely gorgeous. The pictures are online. It's really interesting. The water he spoke hate to had these black and brown, sick looking formations, like mold. Why? Well, why am I telling you this? Well, the human body is over 95% water. So when your self-talk is bad, when you're angry, you're holding on to resentment and grudges, what do you think you're doing to the water cells within your body?
yeah. But
You're
yeah,
literally making yourself sick from the inside out. And what forgiveness is going to do is that forgiveness energy, which is just like the law of gravity. The law of gravity is going to work whether you believe it in or not. You can say, I'm going to call the law of the gravity the law of keeping Katharine on the planet. It doesn't care. It's going to work. I don't believe in the law of gravity. It still doesn't care. It's still going to work. The law of forgiveness is the same thing. That energy is still, once you start forgiving, even if you don't think anything's happening, it is. You're literally changing the cells of your body. And when you forgive, are you going to forgive and forget? I live in the South now, but I'm originally from New York City. And I can tell you with 100% certainty that New Yorkers, we never forget. In fact, I think it's in our DNA. We don't forget anything. And so you're not going to forget, but your perspective will change. I can look back at my dysfunctional youth, and I can now see the adults that were there trying to help that kid. I could see the pockets of love that were there. I could probably regurgitate all those horrible, horrible memories, but I don't really remember them as much anymore. So I haven't forgotten them. I've just got a different perspective about my childhood. I see the love now as opposed to the hate. And that's how you're going to know you've forgiven somebody. If you're on Facebook, for example, and you see the person's name, you're not going to care. This system will remove the emotional charge. So you're not going to care good. You're not going to care bad. You're literally not going to care. You won't care. That, my friends, is freedom. That's joy. That's freedom, because they're now out of your head. They're not living in there rent free anymore.
Yeah, I think you hold on to all that pain and uh,
Yeah.
the poison because like I'm a cancer survivor. I had a level 3 sarcoma at age 27.
Oh
You know,
man.
and I'm 57 now, so I mean I got past it back then. But
I'm
what
a
I
cancer
found,
survivor too.
yeah, and I think what I found is like in my home environment there was a lot of toxicity coming around, and I was absorbing it.
Hmm.
My dad was a drinker. He was always kind of gone. There was some tension between my mom and dad, tension with my older brother. And so I was kind of in a middle kid, and I felt like I was absorbing things, and I was trying to be like the balance because the middle child, and I felt like I was like a cat absorbing like all this
It's good.
stuff.
That's because
And
you're an empath.
yeah, and I did. And at my age 27, then I had this level 3 sarcoma. And I was like, what? And then I just felt that wasn't going to be the end. I felt I needed more. I had more things to do on the planet, and that was like a very crucible moment that where I had been like empathic and I'm still, but I had been kind of shy and I wasn't willing to like execute on what I wanted.
Right.
And after cancer, I decided like I'm going to execute like the things that I thought were impossible. If I survive cancer, I can do anything. And so it put me in a different mindset. I lived in Japan. I met my wife. I'm doing a podcast. I do stuff more outward than I ever was. Like I think you said that you hadn't been that outward going, and then you found a way
Yeah,
to do it.
exactly. Well, let me give some people hope when it comes to I'm a stage 3 triple positive breast cancer survivor myself. And when I did my forgiveness work, and I too have forgiven cancer, I literally sat down and said, I completely forgive breast cancer. I forgive the energy around breast cancer. You can forgive anything. Let me explain that to you a little bit. Let's say we're going to take one of my own memories. Let's say we won't use cancer or sarcoma. Let's take the bully when I was a kid. When I first did this method, I didn't want to forgive the bully. No interest. I didn't even want to forgive the energy around the bully. That's how
Mhm.
mad I was. So I picked apart the memory. Let's use an example. You're driving to work. At the red light, you usually turn left to go to work, but that little bird on your shoulder, for some strange reason, wants you to go right. So you trust your gut and you turn right. When you turn right, it gets you to work, but it's going to take you by your old school. And you're not paying attention. You're thinking about the people you have to meet at work. And, you had a brilliant morning, real good, beautiful cup of coffee, 70-degree weather, gorgeous day. But by the time you get to work, you're grumpy and you start chopping everybody's heads off. Why? And everybody wants to know why. And you're just saying, I have no idea why I'm grumpy. I was fine until I got here. It must be you guys. It wasn't you guys. It was the school. It was a
Yeah.
trigger. And you saw it out of the corner of your eye. So how do you remove these triggers? You forgive the energy around them. So when I sat down to forgive the bully, remember, I'm not ready to forgive the bully or the energy. I pulled apart the memory. I forgave the school, the energy around the school. I forgave the desk and the chair that I sat in, the energy around the desk and the chair. I forgave the building. I forgave the playground. I forgave the grass. I forgave the people that stood around and didn't help me. I still haven't forgiven the bully. I'm picking apart everything else, and I'm forgiving all the inanimate objects that I can think of. And that's bringing that number 10 energy. It's probably down to a 9 now. And I still haven't forgiven the bully, and I still haven't forgiven the energy around the bully. And if I check in with my body and I'm still not ready to forgive them, I will pick apart another memory and I'll do it again. I
Mhm.
forgave my childhood home. I forgave 1974 and the energy around 1974. Why? Because that's the year I tried to commit suicide. And I picked apart the memory, because this is the memory I'm using. And I picked all those things apart. I was still angry. So I forgave my childhood home, the energy around the home. I forgave the dining room table that we sat at, the energy around the table. I forgave all of it. I was still a little angry. So then I forgave New York City, the energy around New York City, forgave myself, and eventually I forgave 1974. And now I can look back at my childhood and it's all I see is the love. So this is a marathon, not a sprint. But if you have an unforgivable act, there are unforgivable things out there that nobody can forgive, not even me. And I wrote the book on it. But you can forgive other parts of the memory so you can breathe again.
Mhm. So you can actually kind of, you don't have to go from 0 to 100. You can take pieces and
You
make
could piece it.
you have little wins. It's the idea like a
Yeah.
lot of people are like all or nothing. It's like
No, not in
yeah,
this case. It's little wins.
yeah,
Just
because
take
that
apart the memory.
I think that's the problem is people want to see like an immediate erasure, right?
Yeah, it's
Immediate,
not. Let's
yeah,
say you were attacked, and let's use a really horrible example. Let's say you were raped in a park. Okay, you're not going to forgive the rapist. But many few people can forgive the park, forgive the
mhm,
bench, forgive the sidewalk, forgive the city, forgive yourself for going into the park, forgive yourself for not making another choice. But
yeah,
you don't have to forgive the bullet. You don't have to forgive the rapist. I mean, there are some unicorn people on the planet that can forgive these things. I am not that person, but I
mhm.
do know people who can. But pull apart the memories so now you can live your life. You can breathe again. And that's what you want. You want to live in joy, and you want to live in freedom, and you want to live in peace. This is one of the ways to do that.
I think it's a real important way it said previously is like just because you forgive somebody doesn't mean that you agree that they were right.
That's right.
And
Just
I think
because
some
I
people,
forgive you doesn't mean you were right. Actually, you're still wrong. You're really wrong. You're still, roaming the planet with Darth Vader. I mean, I don't want a relationship with you. A podcaster a while back said, "Okay, you forgave your father." I said, "Yes, I did. He was one of my number 10s." And he said, and my father's been dead for many, many years, over 20 years. And he said, "Do you have his picture displayed in your house?" And I said, "I have his picture, but it's in a cabinet. Just
mhm,
because I forgave my father doesn't mean I want a relationship with him, alive or dead. So I have his picture, but it's not that I don't want to see it every day. So I have it in a closet. And that's perfectly okay.
I think
That's
that's
fine.
where some people don't ever imagine that concept. They
Yeah.
they think that as soon as they forgive that they're kind of giving somebody a pass or they're allowing they're succumbing to them. They're kind of bending the knee to that,
Yeah.
and you don't
It's
have to think that way. But
no.
I think it's like this, like right or wrong, black and white. People not actually looking at the grays or the. I think there's this idea of expansiveness. If things are very expansive, you can look at things in a very holistic way, but people
Yeah.
tend to want to get real precise and say, yeah, it's like an SAT, it's yes or no. You talked about like the blue book that you like being able to have the be able to write that answer in the blue book versus like the SAT type of five elements. One of them's right. You know,
You can forgive your mother. Let's just or your father. We'll keep using dad. Sorry, dad. We'll keep using dad. But I can forgive dad. Let's say he was still alive. It doesn't mean I want to call him. It doesn't mean I want a relationship with him. It doesn't mean I want to go to his house on Thanksgiving. I don't. But I have completely forgiven him. Buddha said, when you hold in hate, it's like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. So you're really only hurting yourself. Your water cells you're changing them yourself inside. The person you're angry at probably doesn't care. They don't even know you're angry at them. And if they're a narcissist, well, they really don't care. So you're doing this for you. It doesn't mean I'm going to go to their party next week and wish them a happy birthday. They're still wrong. They
yeah.
still have to do whatever it is. I'm doing it for me. I'm doing it because I was the one obsessing about it and I want to live my life again. You don't
But
have to bend the knee to them. You can forgive them and not go into that throne room. Just keep
yeah,
walking.
I think the problem is that people kind of look at it in life as that SAT. That it's like, do you forgive? Yes, no. So they
Yeah.
assume if you say yes, then that implies the bend in the knee and everything they did was okay. The answer that you have is the open book answer where that you're actually going to write it out and you got to explain it and it's a couple paragraphs long. Some people are like, oh, I
Yeah.
don't know if I can process that because I want to know, is it yes, no? Like a prosecutor in the trial. Is it yes, no? I know I want to tell you why this happened. No, no, yes or no. Did they do this? Yes or no? And I think that's where people get caught up in that kind of world.
I
And
agree. And I think it started when we were kids and we were in kindergarten or wherever we were, and some kid punched you in the eye, and the teacher comes over and says, "Now, children, apologize to each other and then go off and play." Okay, if they punched me in the eye, not only do I not want to apologize to this idiot, I don't want to go play with them.
Yeah.
But we connected some unseen dots because these teachers, no disrespect to any teachers out there, don't email me. It's just it's just a thought. But I think we all connected some unseen dots that shouldn't be connected. And then I had a gentleman come up to me at a conference once, and he said, "I don't agree with you." Okay, I'll play. I love this. I love this. Bring it. What don't you agree with? He said, and remember, I used to train concierge, so I'm pretty good at masking my emotions. And he looked at me and he said, "I've made a lot of money." And in my head, I'm going, okay,
Okay.
so.
That's the
And he
answer to
said,
everything.
I have a lot of houses. And I looked at him and I said, "Good for you. You know, great." And he said, "I have a ton of success." And I looked at him. I knew who he was. I said, "Yes, you do." And he said, "I built my success on my bed of pain and hate. That's my platform.
Yeah.
And that was the fuel that I used to get me where I am today."
Hmm.
Okay, let's talk about that. I'll play. Let's do it. There are two trains you could take. You could take the express train or you could take the local. Both trains will get you to your destination. But the local, you have to stop at every single stop. It's like going into a hotel. You're going to the 72nd floor, and some punk kid has just left the elevator. But before he did, he pressed every single button between 2 and 74. And
Hmm.
when you get in there and the door's shut before you can stop them, you have to stop at every single floor. You'll get to the 72nd floor, but you're going to be hot. You're going to be bothered. You're going to be bloodied. You're going to be a shadow of your former self. You could take that local train if you want, but it's not going to be pretty. You're going to run into every pothole. Wouldn't you rather get off that train and hop on the express? I submit to you that using forgiveness, joy, and love will get you twice as far, twice as fast than that horrible little local train will. You can still get there, but it's not going to be pretty.
When people hold on to that as like a badge of honor,
Yep,
I
I
see
did
a
for
lot of,
years.
yeah, especially like in, people have to own people. This idea
Yep,
like I got to own this group, and
yep,
I got to show my disdain, and I got to show my rage, and that gives me power because they want to treat it like a war. Like
yeah.
everything's a battle, everything's some kind of tactical plan. I like, yeah, I won this fight, I won this, I'm winning the war.
It's a better way to live, people. You don't have to live like that. You
But
just don't.
we're human beings, like, and it's like if you want to treat it as a battle plan, and you've got to win every you know chess piece move.
Yeah,
You're gonna play like I'm gonna play
yeah. Go
balance
with
of
God. Do it.
power games. I'm gonna do this, but it's like at the end of the day, if we live in harmony, if we live, we're all pushing the same direction.
Yeah,
We're all humans living on this little bubble planet. That not a lot of them like this in our sector of the galaxy, right?
yeah.
It's like the way you're going can mean that we're all going to be gone, right? Versus like, are we going to be able to live, beyond the dinosaur type of thing? Or are we going to create our own dinosaur situation? I would submit that going that direction with all that hate is going to give me what I want. At the end of the day, it is, well, I guess if you don't want to be here, it'll get you what you want.
See, like in science, and this is scientific fact, like energy attracts like energy. So if you start forgiving and you start to spread the word about this forgiveness technique, and you tell your family and you tell your friends, like energy attracts like energy. So before you know it, you're going to have a very large group of people that are positive and forward thinking. It's like the ripple effect.
Yeah.
The other people, they're always going to be there. But
Yeah.
just because they're behaving badly doesn't mean I'm going to. It's, I'm kind of, if I've been joking for years, if you want to feel better today, right now, in this second, you do two things: turn off the news and don't get on the bathroom scale. There you go.
Well, yeah. Well, I mean,
There
because
you go.
people are getting triggered by all these things, right? So they
Yeah.
get in the news. Like, the bad news sells better.
You can forgive anything on CNN. And I'm serious. Everything in this world is forgivable. You could forgive the CNN stories. You could forgive politicians, dare I say, not going there. You can forgive the war in the Middle East. What's it going to do for the war in the Middle East? Absolutely nothing. But it's going to do brilliant things for you. You could forgive anything. I had a client once who was going to a job. It was paying her mortgage. She couldn't quit because she couldn't see beyond it. And every morning she'd cry in the shower. She was so verbally abused by this guy, she didn't want to go to work. And I
Mhm.
said, you need to get another job. Well, and she started to cry more because it just, that was paying her. And she couldn't understand that by leaving, she could get 3 jobs instead of working for that one guy. And she eventually did leave and is fine now. But when she came to me, I said, forgive the shower, forgive the water in the shower. Start there. Baby steps. You can forgive anything. If what's going on in the world is pissing you off, pick it apart and forgive little things. Now, I do this practice every night before bed. And I really don't want you to forgive more than 10 people at a time. And if you're forgiving an 8, 9, 10 level person, only do 1 a night. Here's why. Do as I say, not as I did. I'm a little bit of an overachiever. Shocker. I know. Very shocking. And I wrote my list down, and I must have had 50 people on the list. And I thought, this is going to be great. I'm going to be like a phoenix rising from the ashes. I'm going to be a butterfly. I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning and I'm going to be a completely different person. Okay. The universe has an incredible sense of humor, and it did not work out the way I thought it would. I did forgive many people on the list. Sure, I did. I also spent the next 3 days in bed with what everybody thought was a stomach flu. Remember those water cells I was talking about? If you only do 10 a night, your body heals itself when it's sleeping, and it can easily remove that anger energy from your body while you're sleeping. But if you do more than that, you're going to get what a Native American Indian told me about 20, 30 years ago, energy sickness. And it's literally the dark energy is going to make you sick because your body is desperately trying to get rid of the energy, and it can't do it that fast. So a lot of people, when they do this work, they feel their shoulders feel lighter. My son did. Some people feel energy move from their solar plexus, which, if you don't know, is right in the center of your body. Some people, may I politely say, are in the bathroom for a few minutes. You didn't eat a piece of bad fish. It's just your body's way of clearing that energy out. So just stay the course. You'll be fine.
It's a lot of work to process, and I think some people like always want something to be the magic pill with kind of instant gratification.
Well, this is like a cleanse. You know, those
Yeah,
cleanses that everybody does? You know what a
yeah,
cleanse does to you. Hello.
yeah,
It's like eating a piece of bad fish. This is the same thing, except you're not drinking. I want you to drink a lot of water and smoothies and eat healthy. But this is like the ultimate cleanse. And if you're really trying to change your life, this is the path for you. This will do it.
yeah. A lot of times it's like fear and safety. I think
Yeah.
leave people in that shower. Like example, like you're scared to go out of the toxicity that
The
because you
devil you
don't
know
know.
is better than the devil you don't.
Yeah, what's outside of that, and so you won't change your environment. You won't change
Yeah.
because it's like to get out of it is more fear involved, and we always are running from the wolf at the
And people are addicted to fear. I mean, I had my story. I'm a survivor of alcoholism. I'm a survivor of suicide. I'm a survivor of cancer. Wow, it makes me sound like I'm just messed up. And yes, I've written books about all these things because if something I do happens helps people, then I'm happy to share. But now I can look back and I can see the love that was there. I haven't forgotten any of it, but I've kind of transmuted it at this point.
well, you're able
And
to. Yeah, it's a
you have to
lens.
be yeah, and you have to be willing. I have a lot of people that look at me and say, I don't want to go back there. I get it. My story is tame in comparison to some of the stories I've heard out there. It's tame, but
Hmm.
I'm only asking you to go back once or twice more because it's the past. It can't hurt you anymore. The past can't hurt you. So by going back to the past and reliving a few of these things, you're actually going to clear it. We've all been sensitized since birth to say, okay, if you're feeling negative things, you have to swallow it. Really, when I was a kid, if you cried, my parents were like, I'll give you something to cry about.
Hmm.
And we were taught to suppress all our emotions, and it was the absolute wrong thing to do.
Yeah, it's like kind of suck it up and
Mm-hmm.
push it down. Where
Yep.
like the thing it's interesting you pointed out is like if you go in the past, you can find the love where you might have
Yep.
found the pain or you found the hurt. And so
Yeah.
people don't want to go there, but if you reframe it, like you reframe your brain, because I'm a software guy and I can kind of frame my systems to
It's
kind of start.
it's like rebooting your computer. That's what you're
Yeah,
doing. The forgiveness is going to reboot your computer and make it all fresh again. It's exactly what it's doing.
what we call things structural changes. Structural
Yeah.
change in computers is like I actually change the core table and the
Yeah.
columns in the table. I add new ones or I take ones out, right? So, and then we call that a structural change because it's the foundation of everything that's going to come after it. So, if you actually do a foundational change to your mindset or the way you see the world, the lens and the frame you put it in, then when you go back and look at something, you might find the joy, you might find the happiness, you might find the beauty, and something
You
that was
might.
really painful, but it's like a foundation.
There's always something beautiful to find. And what if you are one of those humans that really didn't have any joy and there really are no pockets of love that you could see? There is somebody back there. There's a teacher, there's a neighbor, there was a kid in the park. There's always some part of your story you could find the love, even if it was just that one teacher in English during 10th grade. There's
Mhm.
always something you can find. And if you're really not able to forgive and you're listening to this broadcast and you're saying, I really have nothing to forgive, okay, I can play that game too. For the next 7 days, I want you to say the following. I completely forgive myself for not being able to forgive and the energy around this thought. Say that 3 times a night for the next week. And what's going to happen is you may not have to even wait the whole week. Your brain is going to start to work because that's the magic formula. It's like a magic password. And it's going to start opening up drawers and closets in your mind. And you're going to start to remember things. And as you remember things, you could write them down. Now,
Mhm.
everybody has something but to forgive. Did your Super Bowl team win or lose? Did they lose? Okay, enough time has gone by. I think you can add them to the list. Forgive the team. Forgive that old boss you had in the turn of the boy, that sounds, when I say turn of the century, it makes me sound so old. I hate saying that. Well, around the turn of the century, in the early 2000s, you had that boss that was horrible that caused you to move to another job. Forgive that boss. Put him on the list. There's always something you can pick out and forgive.
Yeah, because sometimes like that traumatic thing or the thing that made you pivot and you could be real angry, but like where it put you is actually
Yeah.
the better place.
Yeah.
Like I have gone from toxic work environments and eventually thanked that boss for being such a, being so hard to work with that opened my eyes and showed me how to work with difficult people. So
Right.
I
It
actually
forced you
got
to change.
a new playbook that if I ever see this kind of thing before again, that I don't necessarily get scared of it. I find ways to actually, kind of play chess instead of checkers and be able to, you know, play the political games where
Right.
if you're just looking at it black and white, like figure out the grays, figure out strategies, figure out ways to, be in life because life's not always going to be the, clear, easy path. The
No.
hard things actually train you so that you have that playbook in the future that yeah, when something happens, I actually know what to do rather than being like a deer in the headlight, like, oh, I don't know what to
Yeah.
do.
I don't believe in failure because I think that when something happens, when you quote fail, you either win or you learn. There's no failure. So when something happens, you're either winning or learning. Of course, I try and not learn the same thing twice. Say
Yeah.
thank you very much.
Yeah, you try to make sure that you keep on evolving. Like you every day is like, I don't know what I don't know, but I can learn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
In my world, like IT, it's foundational change after exponentially foundational change. And you get some people it's like, well, I like the mainframe days. So
Well,
they'll make sure that they stay in there are still mainframes around. So I know guys that they've
really.
stayed in yeah, and they've actually stayed in it for 30 years, even though people
Good
think
for
they're gone.
them. They're happy.
Yeah, that's what they
Okay.
found, but they didn't want to. I've been one of these guys that actually evolved to like now I'm in the blockchain AI world, and I came from the mainframe world. But I found
Mainframes
like
can't get hacked either. So there you
yeah,
go. There's this is good.
yeah, there's some places where they still use because of that. But
Yeah.
yeah, there's so sometimes having a skill set and then realizing hey that's what I can do, and knowing that yourself is a good thing to know.
Yeah.
Because if you put yourself in places where you like, I can't get the blockchain, I can't figure out the AI, I can't figure out the machine learning. I'm good at COBOL. I'm good at mainframe. I'm going to stay there, and because it has that, it can't be hacked. So there are places that still use it. So I can find a way to do it. But you have to look in the looking glass and know yourself and know
which is
what.
hard.
That's a hard thing to do because you might see everybody else trying to be like the Joneses. The comparison trap is like, hey, Jones has learned this, Jones has learned that. That's fine, but that's Mr. Jones.
I've
Who are you?
never been able to keep up with the Joneses, the Smiths, or the Smythes ever. I've always been different. And when I was a kid, I got teased because I was a different, and it was kind of like they were kind of teasing me. Now it's a compliment.
I think that's the secret sauce to everybody is their individualism. We talk about
A
individualism,
compliment.
and then people go and then try to push it down. It's like, well, I thought you said that's the key, right? The fact that we have an individualistic society, right? But then
Yeah.
people then want to just clone other people, right?
Yeah.
And it seems counterintuitive. It seems hypocritical.
Well, it's
You
like
know,
saying rich people are bad, right? All rich people are bad. They're horrible people, but I want to win the lottery and become rich. Okay, you're canceling out the thought. The reason you're not getting all the money is because deep down inside,
I
you
think it's
think money is bad and rich people are bad, and you don't want to become bad like them. So you're canceling out the thought. It's the same thing.
Yeah, it's like you find out what you could do. If you're successful, doesn't mean you have to be like the person that you despise, right?
That's
That,
exactly right.
that you could take it and you could be forward thinking and you could go and give to society and give to people and teach people. So if you're
There
out
are
there,
people like that out there. There are rich people who are warm, friendly, approachable, and absolutely stunning, lovely people.
yeah, and they give to
They
society,
exist.
they set up foundations, they help
Yeah,
poor people, they feed poor people, they work
sure.
on disease research. And so the
They're
idea
there.
that, yeah, they're like, you don't have to be the guy that doesn't do that.
Well,
You could
unless you
be the
want to,
person,
but
you could be the person that does. Doesn't be
whatever
just,
floats your boat, as my mother used to say.
yeah, it's like, because like if the more money you have, the more problems you can have if
That's
you
right.
don't solve the core issues you had. So just because you got the money doesn't mean that you won't be miserable. I've met a lot of successful people that are totally miserable. They
They need
have
my
all
book.
they have all the material things. They can go
Yeah.
travel, but they just like they don't even they hate their life. And I'm like, so the money didn't fix it.
No, they need my book. Give my book to them. They need to do some forgiveness work, and then maybe things will click.
Yeah, yeah. So it's not always like black and white. There's certainly it's not going to always solve it
That's
without
it.
doing the hard inner work that we're talking about here. And then again, the ultimate path to forgiveness, unlocking your power, is your new book, and we do have your website. So if people go to katharinegiovanni.com, is that how they can connect with you and find out where they can get all your books?
Yep, you can go to, and remember, if you're listening, Catherine is spelled a little odd thanks to my mother. Thanks, Mom. And it's Katharine Giovanni.com. And there's private sessions and blogs, and everything's on that website.
That's awesome. And that'll be fully clickable in the podcast description on any channel that we're on. We've just been on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'll be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Video Podcast, Amazon, iHeartRadio, many other channels by the end of the day. And we'll create a landing page for people to just figure out wherever they want to listen to it or watch it again. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the Fam Electric Ghost podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. It was fun.
Thank you.